Hey guys, don't have much time today because, finals week. But Elon Musk is on the redemption PR tour. Visited his good old buddy Joe Rogan, where he famously smoked some pot and became a little bit of a meme recently. Elon Musk ran into a bit of a problem PR wise because he retweeted a video of some doctors who were saying that coronavirus is a hoax. Everybody can just go back to their jobs, whatnot. Then he deleted uh, the tweet, but he also tweeted things like "Free America," stuff like that. So yeah, he needs to rehab his image a bit. So he called up his friend Joe Rogan. He's like, hey, we're both still in the same state. I'll just drive on over there and you know be a guest on your podcast and don't know what happened behind the scenes, but I know that it's just convenient that after such a flub that Elon just finds himself on the biggest podcast that everybody's watching these days. So during the podcast, just hearing Elon talk, I was thinking, why would Elon Musk even be making the ventilators like he was if he didn't believe that it was an important thing? If he thought that all of what those doctors said was true, why would he have even been making ventilators famously to give to hospitals and whatnot? And what I realized is actually he's just a businessman, you know, and it's not just this doesn't just apply to him. It could be Ford, Chevy, whatnot. Any car company or vacuum company like Dyson in the UK, any company that finds themselves all of a sudden not essential can pitch the argument, hey, we can make this essential thing out of this non-essential thing that we always make, and they can send all their factory workers back to work, really building cars and vacuums and stuff. But then you know put a few people on this special project of building uh, ventilators out of stuff we already do anyway, and all of a sudden we're essential. So now all of a sudden I don't see it so much as a philanthropy thing that Elon did in making those ventilators. He was just trying to keep his plant open. Um, so yeah, what I want to say about the podcast, direct response to it is, for the first 57 minutes of the 2 hour podcast, there was no talk about COVID-19 or what Elon tweeted. Even the fact that he tweeted something out, it was brushed over because they never really said what it was that he tweeted out that was so controversial. He retweeted those doctors that have been rebuked by all these other doctors and seriously should probably lose their medical license for the bullshit that they were peddling. And their advance urgent care business is probably selling bogus Chinese fake tests anyway. That the ones that have been rejected by the FDA because they were the first on the scene with the tests, and they've been testing everybody, and they're the ones that are saying, oh well, like hardly anyone doesn't have the coronavirus and nobody's dying, and the numbers are wrong, and so they come out and make this big fake public announcement, with fake reporters and all that, and these doctors become one of the few people that YouTube's had to actually like step in and say, no, you know what, we're pulling this video because of misinformation. And yeah, that was what Elon retweeted. And those doctors alone, what they did as far as misinformation, I would say you could measure what's going to happen because people bought into what they were saying. In terms of a couple thousand more people dying, at least, you know, and Elon retweeting it kind of fed into that. So you could say some blood is on his hands too. But 57 minutes into this, where it's almost like they're trolling people because they know that that's what they want them to talk about, right? So 57 minutes into this podcast, uh, they start talking about the coronavirus and whatnot. And when I was looking at Elon's facial expressions and whatnot, I'm like, oh my god, is he a virus denier? Holy shit! You know, thought he was smart. He's actually one of the people that my girlfriend kind of idolizes, and I was actually looking into getting a Tesla in the future, like as a life goal, you know. But on this one thing, I'm thinking he's kind of out there. Um, Nobody is 100% right on everything, but um, they started to minimize what this virus is doing, uh, and there are some things that I can directly refute that were said on that podcast that just aired like 11, 12 hours ago. But first of all, Elon said that Tesla had 7,000 people in China and none of them died. Now, he didn't say none of them caught the virus. He said, because later on he says that he knew people that caught the virus. Didn't even say if those were his workers. But he said 7,000 people in China were his workers and none of them died. Well, China imposed this huge lockdown and contained their virus better than we did in America. Right? So, like, not as many people got it because they paid attention and they're like, holy shit. And they really reacted. So, where is the Tesla plant versus where the initial outbreak was in China? You know? And it is interesting that 7,000 Tesla workers and no one died yet. But you also have to figure who works in an auto factory when they are one of the people that are high risk for this. You know, who's that old still working in an auto factory, who's immunocompromised and feeble and working in an auto factory. There's a filter there, right? So Elon goes into the argument that COVID-19 was not the primary cause of a lot of the deaths, and then uses the arguments of, you know, if somebody got eaten by a shark but they had COVID-19, that that they would be called a COVID-19 death, and someone was hit by a bus, that they would be categorized as a COVID death. That was at 1 hour and 28 minutes into the podcast. So what I'm going to say about this is those are extreme examples and have not happened. You know, show me a case where somebody was bit by a shark and they call it a COVID death. It didn't happen. But it is a virus denier right-wing talking point that I'm thinking that maybe he's talking to somebody or listening to, you know, some other strange sources on this. But yeah, those things never happened. But if somebody were to die of the flu, but they had a history of heart complications before, and the final thing that killed them was a heart attack, to say that the heart died because they had heart complications, but it wasn't the flu, is a misunderstanding of how viruses work, because the way that they end up killing you is respiratory arrest, heart attack, shock, you know, that at the end of your life, when you die from something like Ebola or like a horrible influenza or something like that, you have a whole bunch of shit happen to you, like seizures, comas, heart attacks, you know, and to want to call that heart attack something that didn't happen because of COVID-19 because the person had heart complications before is really uh, a misunderstanding of how people die and what the complications lead to when people die of disease. So I'm not a medical doctor. I am actually an addiction counselor, but I do understand that much about medicine. Um, so at a minute 29, 1 minute later, he also says that hospitals are getting paid more for COVID patients, right? And at this point, he's sounding like an anti-vaxxer that actually Misty and I actually know one who posed to Misty that vaccines cause autism, and the reason why her and I don't know this is because we haven't made it to the PhD level yet, where they pull you into a side room and they tell you the real secrets about why certain diseases happen. You know, um, how do you think that doctors lying about the actual cause of death of someone is going to be widespread over the whole country and not exposed? Like this is a big conspiracy amongst all these doctors who pledge better than Scouts Honor because if they get caught, they're going to have their license to practice removed and they're not going to be making, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year anymore. These doctors pledge to tell the truth about these things in people's medical records, right? How are you going to hide that ethical lapse in doctors all across the country who are declaring these patients COVID deaths when they're not COVID deaths? How are you going to hide that? This goes to the argument of two people can keep a secret if one of them are dead. Okay. Um, Now there are cases that were presumed COVID patients, because they had the right symptoms. They died, and there were no tests available. So those doctors were told, call that a COVID death, right? If the symptoms fit, if and so what Elon is saying, I want them to parse out the deaths from COVID that had a test and those that didn't. Well, the tests weren't available for a lot of them, and so uh, why would you waste a test on somebody who's on death's doorstep when there are people who are alive that might have it that might need the test to find out, if you can actually keep them from getting to that point of, dying. Um, so there's this mass of people that have died without a test that are called COVID deaths because they had the right symptoms. Then he's like, oh well, the list of symptoms is just so big that it could be anything. Okay, so what I'll say about this is there is a minimum number of deaths you would consider average for any area in any year, and you will see a rise in deaths over and above just about anything else that could have caused these deaths. And at least those, when we retroactively look at this from years from now, at least those we will say, you know what? That spike in deaths right there, that was that was the COVID-19, right? And you can revise the numbers however you want. We're going to see the horrible effects of people calling for uh, an end to the lockdowns, an end to the shutdowns pretty soon. Tomorrow in uh, Denver, Colorado, we'll be going into our next phase where people like Elon Musk have been inspiring people to think that there's not much to worry about. And because of that, we're going to see a couple thousand more deaths. And because of the reach of the Joe Rogan podcast, having already had about 3 million views on that video as I make this video, because of that reach, thousands more people are going to die because they're going to go out thinking, you know, it's really overblown. It's no worse than the flu. Uh, yeah, assuming doctors are willing to falsify medical records and say, oh, well, he coughed before he died, so COVID death. No. Doctors don't need hospital money that much, right? They could actually be furloughed for a little while and be pretty comfortable. And then, after this is all over, still find a job and be just fine. They're not worried about mislabeling a death to get a couple thousand extra dollars. Let me tell you why these hospitals are empty. As far as all of the other wings of the hospital that haven't been taken over by the coronavirus, they're empty because they don't want people to catch it. They don't want people coming to the hospital and catching coronavirus and leaving, because then the hospital might get sued for not taking the precaution of stopping all non-essential hospital procedures. So, yeah, Nick in the chat says more than a couple thousand, possibly tens of thousands. It's going to be hard to measure, like the actual effect of just Elon Musk and Joe Rogan, compared to everyone having this general feeling like, oh, were we all just like lied to, or did we all just fall for a prank, a massive mass hysteria that swept over the whole world, and it was actually nothing. Yeah, those people are going to go out, if they have those feelings, do some very risky behavior, and they're going to die. Now, how do I say that Elon Musk stacks up against, say, the president? I'm going to say the president of the United States of America already wanting things to open back up. It's going to kill a certain subset of people already, but the Elon Musk crowd, the people that are going to take his word for it, that's a couple thousand on top of that, so yeah, then Elon starts talking about how people die of the flu every year, and we do nothing. And first of all, that's a whataboutism. Google whataboutisms and how it's a logical fallacy. We don't like people to die of the flu. The same people that are high risk for the flu are high risk for this. Only this seems to be worse. Then at an hour and 36 minutes, Joe Rogan throws in cigarettes as the whataboutism. Well, we don't stop people from smoking cigarettes, and those kill a whole bunch more people. Actually, the rate that COVID-19 is killing people right now actually exceeds that of all leading causes of death in America, as far as like the last couple of weeks. But yes, cigarettes kill a lot of people, and I tell people all the time as an addiction counselor, leading cause of death, kills more people than all the other drugs put together, plus alcohol. Cigarettes, as far as eventually leading to your death. Um, but then in the next minute, he brings up Tylenol deaths, which is something I'd never heard about before being a very big problem. Like, if you're going to take like cigarette deaths and then compare it to like Tylenol overdoses and mixing Tylenol with alcohol, like, holy crap, the just the crap that's being spewed out of their mouths right now. And then Joe Rogan talks about driving deaths, another whataboutism, and then swimming pool deaths, which is something that came up with Dr. Phil on the Fox News channel, but that was widely debunked. But at least Joe Rogan had a more reasonable figure as far as like swimming pool deaths. But all of these are whataboutisms. You know, if you see something that's a preventable death, you want to prevent it, right? As far as the flu, yeah, there probably were instances of the flu, even in the past couple years, um, that we should have had a bigger response. There should have been a bigger media response because we would have saved lives. So to say that we shouldn't have as big of a response now because now we understand what to do to save lives, um, because we didn't in the past, this doesn't make sense. Um, and after about the 1 minute 40 mark, they stopped talking about COVID-19 and started talking about a whole bunch of other stuff like MMA and stuff. But yeah, the fact that it didn't start in that podcast till 57 minutes in, I felt completely trolled because I knew what I was listening for. Um, I really think that the point of we're not wanting to catch it ourselves, even if we're healthy and not at risk, because we don't want to give it to somebody else who isn't uh, as lucky or might be at higher risk. That was not given enough consideration in this podcast. You know, um, and I really felt like it was a little bit of a doubling down on Elon's part. It didn't really address the actual thing that he tweeted that was very wrong for him to retweet, those doctors. So, yeah, I don't feel that much better about Elon, but I see a little bit more of his business side. Uh, Terrence Hypno Nipple says flu death numbers seem vague anyway in the chat. And I'll say that flu death numbers are probably going to look a little bit better given that we're all quarantined at home for a month, and the deaths that happen over and above what would normally happen for this time of the year because of this pandemic. Um, it's going to be very hard to say, okay, well, now subtract out the flu deaths that didn't happen. You know, it's going to be some really complicated math. Um, I just want you all to be safe. Um, I do think it's too soon to reopen the country as much as we have, and especially if you look at why we initially shut down, and then instead of waiting until the number of cases subsides, we're now reopening at the peak of where we have new infections every day. We're just going to see a horrible surge. Uh, just be safe and protect you and yours. That's all you can do. Um, it was going to be a long shot to be able to lock down America anyway. It's just a different culture. And America's going to suffer for it. Take care, people.